Check it out.
Left the grocery store, and as we all know, the coronavirus, COVID-19, whatever we're calling it this week, has driven people completely insane. And the woman in line in front of me, just apropos of nothing, just starts shrieking at the poor little guy ringing her up that he has just touched his face and that he therefore must wash his hands. Just shrieking this to the top of her lungs. So I'm assuming she surely to God must be the head of the CDC because she says it was such conviction. And by the way, lady, you're not supposed to touch your face. Doesn't really matter so much if he touches his. I digress. The little guy says, I can't wash my hands right now. She says, I'll wait. Great. Well, I'll wait, I guess, lady. He says, I have hand sanitizer. So he takes like a quarter of a little squirt, does this little thing on his hands for about a quarter of a second, which basically would have just served to incite a riot and maybe kill off 2 small, weak germs, to which the head of the CDC in her kitten-covered lab coat nods and fervently agrees that he's, saved the universe with that. He kind of refrains from rolling his eyes, which I think makes him a saint. And then she goes on to whip out her credit card and use the debit pad that every finger-licking, booger-picking, double-digit IQ idiot has touched all day long after going to the bathroom and not washing their hands. And then she just walks on out with her groceries, completely oblivious to the fact that everyone who handled those groceries prior to her getting them has left their little touch and trace of germs all over them. That going down the conveyor belt, they probably picked up chicken juice and everything else. But thank God that kid used that quarter of a squirt of Purell. She has saved the day and kept us all safe from the coronavirus. Y'all, it doesn't matter what we do. There's so many stupid people in this world. We're never going to survive anyway. So touch your face. Just touch it. Just touch it. It's all that's left.
Now, I mentioned that Dana Bash of CNN, who frequently slams the president, complimented him and his team on their response to the coronavirus. Joe Scarborough, also a Trump hater, praised the president's press conference about the coronavirus. Dr. Sanjay Gupta also said that America should listen to Trump. What's going on?
I've really tried to modulate, I've looked at all these models, and I've tried to modulate, I think, things to present things in a way that I think are digestible. But look, I think when people listen to the message coming out of the White House today, which, again, was a much more distinctive and different tone, you heard the president say, look, stay home. Look, it's bad. These are the president's words after he met with his public health advisors, and they really convinced him of what they were seeing here. It's bad, he said. I think people really need to heed that. Jake, the numbers are I think it's hard to really wrap your mind around what the numbers could be. And I don't, I think maybe it's not helpful at this point to project what those numbers are. But let me just say this. You've heard from many people that 40 to 60% of the nation could be exposed to this virus. 40 to 60% of Americans. And you've heard that the fatality rate of this is 1 to 2%, let's say, and that might be conservative. It's hard to know for sure. But overall, look, you can do the math, and again, this is. I don't want to be alarmist. I want to be very careful here how I'm presenting this, but I think the prevailing message should be that maybe we are still at this inflection point, and if we take heed, and we're not asking people to. There's no therapeutic, there's no vaccine. We know that. We're asking people to stay home and not spread the virus.
So that's Dr. Sanjay Gupta of CNN actually saying that America should listen to the advice that President Trump has been giving them. Similarly, his colleague Dana Bash actually praised Trump's response to the coronavirus.
Look, this is just coming back to where this conversation started after the press conference. I hear what Sanjay is saying about Tony Fauci giving, a little bit more wiggle room than others. But if you look at the big picture, this was remarkable from the President of the United States.
What?
This is a nonpartisan. This is.
Did she say nonpartisan?
An important thing to note and to applaud from an American standpoint.
Important thing to applaud?
From a human standpoint. He is being the kind of leader that people need, at least in tone, today. And
the kind of leader that people need, at least in tone. Man, that was. Can you imagine how difficult it was for her to say that? The kind of leader America needs, at least in tone.
Yesterday, in tone that people need and want and yearn for in times of crisis and uncertainty.
Similarly, Trump hater Joe Scarborough praising Trump's press conference.
The president was sober. He did what a president's supposed to do. He delivered the bad news. There are a couple things that were just I found remarkable, talking about how, yes, we're probably going to go into a recession. Well, yeah, we are, and Americans already know that. The 10 people limit went further than most people in the administration.
So are we suspending temporarily, referring to him as a Nazi and a fascist and a bigot and a tyrant and a racist?
We're talking about limiting gatherings to 10 people. Don't go to restaurants. Don't go to bars. Don't go out. This was a president even talking about saying to his son, when asked how it was, he said, it's bad. It's bad. Hopefully we can avoid the worst case scenarios and bring this in for a landing and have the best case scenarios.
Wow. Dr. Anthony Fauci was on the Hugh Hewitt show this morning, and he said testing issues that the CDC and others were experiencing is not anyone's fault, certainly not the president's. This is a guy who's been widely called credible, the face of dealing with the coronavirus. He's worked for presidents, Republicans, and Democrats. And by the way, he was asked about what it's like to work for President Trump by Hugh Hewitt. And he has been perceived as somebody that's bipartisan, down the middle, just given the facts. And even people on the left have said that. So if that's how you feel about this man, and he publicly says, hey, Trump is not at fault for these snafus, for these mistakes.